Hey everybody, it's the Dude here to bring you another video. In this episode, for the first time this season, there are more than just two stories going on at any one time. This week we have the Rick and Aaron story, the Rosita and Eugene story, the Michonne story, the Carl and Jesus story, which becomes the Negan and Daryl story. We got some Spencer and Gabriel, and Dwight and Olivia. I feel like I'm just naming characters now, but really, all of them have their own stories, and this is something that I feel like the show doesn't do all the time. Let's hope all these stories go somewhere. Alright, let's dive in. Here is my review and analysis of Season 7, Episode 7 of The Walking Dead. The title, Sing Me a Song, is obviously in reference to the punishment that Carl receives from Negan this episode. Rather than experiencing a more physical punishment like Negan has been known to deliver in the past, Carl is experiencing a mental punishment. Weeks ago, when I heard that this episode was going to be called Sing Me a Song, I knew what the story was going to be about, and I got so excited that we were finally going to get the Carl and Negan arc. This is something that I've been looking forward to for nearly 4 years, and to see the lines delivered and these moments playing out is one of the most enjoyable things I've got to see this season. With all that said, we open on Michonne out in the world. Now, we haven't seen her since she left Carl at the beginning of episode 5. Since then, she's made her way back to the pile of mattresses that the Saviors burned. To Michonne, this is the only clue as to where the Saviors might live. If they took this road from Alexandria back home and burned the mattresses on the way there, naturally she would assume that this road leads to them. She turns back to where she's come from. To me, it looks like she's thinking about all the relationships she's built with Rick and Carl and this new baby. But at the same time, she's also thinking about Glenn and Abraham. And she's putting them and the people who are still alive ahead of herself. Michonne continues on, following a trail of dark liquid on the road. And this could be a number of things. This could be normal leaking from one of the Savior's cars, or it could be the trail that we've seen Jesus making since he hopped in one of these cars. But if that is the trail that Michonne's following, then that means that this road goes from not only Alexandria to the sanctuary, but also from the hilltop to the sanctuary. We hear Michonne whistling, trying to gather walkers towards her. She takes out a few and then begins dragging one into what we later learn is a pile of walkers that she's setting up in order to block any saviors coming down this road. I'm pretty sure this is the last Michonne zombie kill we get for the entire half season, so I think this would be the best time to show you. So Michonne stabs a walker through the head and then cuts the head off of the other. When she picks up one of the zombies to drag it to the pile she's building, she leaves behind her bag with her walkie-talkie that Rick gave her. At this point in the episode, I feel like they were trying to make it unclear as to whether Michonne kept that walkie-talkie with her. But of course, she also left her sword there, so we knew she wasn't going to leave that. Then we cut to Rick waking up in the back of a van from what kind of seems like a bad dream. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a whole dream sequence cut here. Rick grabs the walkie-talkie and looks at it as if he has no new messages. This is just showing that Rick is hoping that Michonne will change her mind. Aaron lifts the door open on the van and we get a look at the nice beard we see he's eventually gonna grow. Didn't see that last night. And Rick stands up. Didn't see what? Ooh, I wonder what they're looking at. Instead of cutting to what they're seeing, we cut to two saviors sitting at the back of a truck, waiting for some zombies to pass. This savior with the cucumber is one of the ones that cornered Daryl when he tried to escape in episode 3. This savior with the apple talks a little bit about Fat Joey and how he's in charge of something called redirect duty. We learn later that the guy that Negan punishes near the end of the episode skipped out on redirect duty in order to sleep with one of Negan's wives. The zombies pass and these two load up. In the back of the truck, Jesus and Carl pop out. Jesus goes straight for the box of liquor that Gregory gave to Simon in episode 5. He uses his knife to carve a slit in the bottom of the box. He then looks out through the back of the truck, and through the flaps he sees one of these statues, decorated with zombie bits. We saw another in episode 3 when Dwight was leaving. Jesus takes it as a landmark and marks his way back by squeezing some syrup out the back of the truck. We should get out, follow the rest of the way. Jesus wants Carl to dive and roll out of the truck, and Carl's like, but what if I fuck up? And Jesus is like, it'll be fine. And Carl's like, okay, show me first. And Jesus does, like the badass he is, only to see Carl staying behind in the truck, waving at him. Show me first. I'm gonna count that as a double line. You know, when a character says a line once and then says it again with different inflection for more emphasis, it happens all the time in the show. And though different characters said this line, it was said consecutively and specifically for more emphasis. So, I'm gonna count it. I do really like how Jesus isn't really bothered by Carl. His reaction to first seeing Carl in the van, and his reaction here to being tricked by Carl, comes with more fondness than annoyance, and I think that's really cool. In the comics, when Jesus is sent after Dwight, not Simon, he actually gets captured. And then as soon as he gets to the sanctuary, he rolls out. I understand that Daryl was already captured and then Carl was about to be, so we don't also need that to happen to Jesus. Back with Carl, we get what seems like is his POV, looking through the flaps of the back of the van, slowly seeing little bits of zombies on the sanctuary fence. I think this scene has fantastic tension, and for people who hadn't read the comics, I can imagine this being one of the most on the edge of your seat moments in the show. Carl goes to the back of the truck and grabs a machine gun from a big pile of guns. At the end of episode 5, I was wondering how Carl was gonna get a weapon. In the comics, Carl takes with him Abraham's machine gun, so when he didn't have anything going on the truck, I was like, how is he gonna do what he's going to do? I didn't really think about there being guns in this truck, and the more I think about it, the more I think there really shouldn't be. This truck just came from the hilltop, where they took half of their stuff. But as we learned when we first went to the hilltop in season 6, they ran out of ammo weeks ago. So why is there a fully loaded, fully automatic rifle that was still left at the hilltop? That wasn't taken from them immediately back when Negan first showed up. So this didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. The van stops and Carl hunkers down. Outside, he hears Negan's voice. "Alright boys, let's get all this loaded up so I can get inside and unload one myself." In the comics, there's a running joke with Negan that anytime he tells what he thinks is a joke, most of his men don't really react to it, and he turns like, get it? Like, you know? And right here in the comics, he says, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying that I'm gonna go fuck some of my wives. Get it? Fat Joey starts to talk to Negan about what went wrong on redirect duty, and Negan's like, and whose job was that? Negan says this a lot when something goes wrong. He's all about jobs and rules and whose responsibility it is. Remember when he was going to blame Olivia for when Spencer stole the guns? Just then, the savior with the apple hops up into the truck, he grabs the big box of liquor, and all of it falls through the bottom, causing him to look up and see Carl. But Carl doesn't hesitate. He shoots him dead. The savior with the cucumber runs out, and Carl perches himself at the back of the truck. "Stay back! I only want Negan. He killed my friends." Negan starts whistling. He's staying back behind his men just in case Carl tries something. "You are adorable." In the comics, Carl is like an 11-year-old kid. This line would make a little more sense if Carl was actually 11 years old and not 16. "Kid, I ain't gonna lie, you scared the shit out of me." The cucumber savior makes a break for Carl, giving Dwight just enough time to get Carl down. But Negan stops him. "Dwight." Negan puts his hand out to help Carl up. "Is that any way to treat our new guest? Come on, kid. I want to show you around." Then we get our first glimpse of Daryl. He was put on fence duty. Apparently that was the punishment for not saying I'm Negan. After that we get the big wide shot, slowly revealing all the zombies on the fence before pulling back and revealing the giant factory that is the sanctuary. This was a really satisfying shot that only looks a little CG. There's a lot of direct zombie references from the comic book pages, and it was just a killer way to finish off the opening of this episode. On the fence, we also see the red-headed man from episode 3, but we don't get Gordon, the other savior who was put on the fence at the end of that same episode. So maybe the fence goes all the way around the sanctuary. When we come back from commercial break, Negan says, "Come on, kid, I'll show you around." Now, I think the reason this line was said again is because of the commercial break, but I'm a sucker for those double lines, and I'd really like to hit 100 by the end of the season. So, double line. Carl doesn't do anything. He just stares at Negan. "You know, you do the same damn stink eye as your dad, except it's only half as good. Well, you know, you're missing an eye. You really not gonna take my hand? 'Cause you're lucky you even still have a hand. Same as your boy Daryl over here now that I think about it." Since Negan's been introduced to the show, there have been a lot of moments from the comics that have been adapted line for line. And as a person who's read the Negan story kind of over and over, my favorite Negan moments are the ones that are original to the show. Like saying Carl's stink eye is the same as his dad, or how he's lucky he even has a hand, because obviously that whole "Rick, cut your boy's hand off" didn't happen in the books. And again, he references Daryl, who has the hand that he's very lucky to have, a little too fucking close to a zombie, don't you think? Negan puts his hand out one more time for Carl, and he takes it. "Now, come with me." He turns to Dwight. "Dwighty boy, why don't you take Daryl, take him to the kitchen, and do a little grub prep. New plan, boys. Let's burn the dead, unload the truck later. Man, I am not gonna have the time to screw any of my wives today. Turns back to Dwight. I mean, maybe one. Ah, fuck, Negan! Pushing Dwight. Too much, man. Negan starts walking into the sanctuary, and Carl's like, what are you gonna do to me? Negan stops. Number 1, do not shatter my image of you. You're a badass. You're not scared of shit, don't be scared of me. It's a disappointment. Number 2, you really want me to ruin the surprise? Screw you, kid. Seriously. Screw you. Hey, double line. And this specific double line makes me think about how much I can't wait for the Blu-ray version of Season 7. Every time he says screwed or pegged, it really takes me out of the moment. Because I know what he's supposed to say. Everybody knows what he means. I guess my point is I think that the Season 7 Blu-ray will be the highest selling Walking Dead season ever. Simply because every episode with Negan is going to have completely different takes where he is just letting loose with curse words. Alright, Negan takes Carl into the main factory room of the sanctuary. He leans over to him. Check this out. Negan saunters over to the railing, and all of the people see him and immediately bow. Negan tells all of his people that the Saviors just got a bunch of supplies, and that everyone is going to get free vegetables for dinner. No points required. And everybody's really happy. He turns away from them all, leaning up against the railing, and looks at Carl. You see that? Respect. They still on their knees? As you were! And then we see Carl. Oddly, he looks almost won over by this. Throughout the episode, Negan is taking Carl on a tour of the sanctuary, and each stop represents another aspect of the power that Negan has. Here, Carl sees that these people on the surface are happy, and that Negan gives them that happiness, and that with that, he gets respect. This is something that, at least right now in the story, Carl isn't seeing from his own father. Back at Alexandria, Rosita and Eugene are setting up to go make a bullet. Eugene is blathering some technical jargon. I wanted to show you a few potentials that I've rated B+ or higher. I do believe I've bullseyed something worth considering for the task at hand. Rosita's like, what? And he's like, finding goods for Negan. No, we're not doing shit for that cabron. Oh, it's good to be reminded that Rosita is Hispanic. I really needed that. Spencer's there and asks, you're not going out to find stuff for the Saviors? Gabriel's with him and he's like, perhaps we should all travel together. We're fine on our own. And she drags Eugene out of Alexandria. I'm starting to really like Rosita. In the comics, she never had that big of a role. And I think her and Eugene's story is the only story I really care about that was directly fueled by Abraham's death. Back at the sanctuary, we are at the second stop of the tour, Negan's penthouse, filled with all of his wives. They're all wearing matching black outfits, so it makes me wonder why in episode 3, anytime we saw Sherry, she wasn't wearing this. Negan leans over to Carl. I know. Every woman from where you're from dresses like they do the books at an auto shop. This line actually got changed from what it was originally in the comics. In the books, he says, every woman from where you're from dresses like a bunch of elderly lesbians. Which is so funny, but I guess it's just not very politically correct. Negan sees Sherry comforting another one of Negan's wives. When he gets Sherry alone, Negan pours himself a drink and asks, what happened with Amber and Mark? Amber being the obviously in trouble one of Negan's wives that Sherry was comforting, and Mark being the guy who skipped out on redirect duty. She says, what we talk about when you're not here is none of your business. Fair play. Is it a fair play, though? I thought everyone was Negan. Obviously, Negan's not married to himself, so he might not require his wives to refer to themselves as Negan, but I would still assume that he would make it a rule that anything anybody says ever is fair game to him. But I guess this is an added amount of freedom that his wives have, that they get to keep secrets from him. I would figure that as a married man, he would want no secrets between husband and wife. On top of the hard liquor he just poured himself, he cracks open a beer. Nothing matters if you're dead. You, my dear, are here because you get that. And that's very true. This is somewhat what Sherry and Dwight talk about when they met in the stairwell in episode 3. That even though they're apart, and even though Dwight's burned and she's one of Negan's wives, this is better than being dead. And Sherry believes that, and that's what keeps her going. So she tells Negan, she made a mistake. Go easy on her. I ever hit one of you? No, there's worse. Negan puts the beer bottle in Carl's hand and then goes over to talk to Amber. Amber, you know I don't want anybody here that doesn't want to be here, right? So if you want to leave and go back to Mark, but what can't you do? Cheat on you? That is exactly right. You can't cheat on me. You know, if I count the Carl and Jesus double line at the beginning of the episode, I feel like I have to count this one, because although the same character doesn't say it, Negan is saying this line again for more emphasis. There's plenty of other gals that would like to take your place, and there's a few job openings that I can think of. You want to go back to Mark and your mom? Hell, I'll put you all on the same job. And Amber's like, no, I'll stay. Okay, so the same job that Negan's referring to is the fence, which either means they're going to be wrangling zombies or they're going to be dead and guarding the sanctuary as zombies. And that's not really an option for Amber. So really, Negan isn't giving her a choice. In the books, the option Amber has is to just go back to working for points, and that sounds really grueling, but it's not death. So it still feel like Negan didn't really want someone who didn't want to be there. But obviously she doesn't want to be here, and she's just staying here because she doesn't want herself and the people that she really loves to die. So that's different. Adding this whole fence as punishment makes Negan a little more evil than he was in the books, and makes all this wife stuff a little more rapey, when the whole idea is that he doesn't want to force them to do that. So I don't like that change. I don't like that threat. In the comics, we don't get a formal introduction to Dwight and Sherry like we did in Season 6 and then again in Episode 3 of this season. We learn about their dynamic through Mark and Amber. We see what must have happened, and their history is never explicitly stated. So once they gave us all that backstory, I kind of wondered, ooh, maybe they're gonna burn somebody else's face, because now we don't need Amber and Mark's story to clue us in about Dwight and Sherry. That's why I really thought that it could be Daryl, or Jesus, or somebody more interesting than a savior we've never seen before. Negan saunters back over to Sherry. You see that? Wasn't hard on her. You're an asshole. I know. But the messed up thing is, you like me anyway. Now, whether or not that's true, I couldn't really say. Negan kisses Sherry, and she doesn't really have a choice whether or not to kiss him back. And of course, it comes at the perfect moment where Dwight and Daryl come in. This is another added bit to antagonize Dwight, pushing him more and more. And I love it. When Daryl comes in, Carl stares at him. And I'm sure Daryl's like, Carl, wait, I'm gonna start to blink, and now. Alright, got it, Carl? Okay. Here you go, Negan, here's your cheese. Daryl says, what do you got him here? Whoa! What we talk about when you're not here is none of your business. Huh, that is exactly what Sherry said, and therefore a double line. So I guess I was wrong. This is one of Negan's rules, that even though everybody's Negan and he's in charge, that anything you say in private is your own. Dwighty boy, fire up that furnace. I'll be down in a minute. Time for a little deja vu. Ooh. Negan and Carl move along with the tour, and Dwight tries to push Daryl out of the room, but he struggles while looking at Sherry. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense why Daryl would want to talk to Sherry and think that Dwight would allow him to. Once they all leave, Sherry walks over to the bar, drinks Negan's drink, and starts crying. It's obvious that having to kiss Negan in front of Dwight really took its toll on her. Honestly, now I believe that Sherry does truly hate Negan. Back on the road with Aaron and Rick, and I'm very excited to find out what they were looking at that wasn't there the night before. But here, assuming that this is where the truck was parked during the night and during the last scene, the only thing of any note is this fence that isn't on eye level with what they were looking at outside the car. Again, I feel like something has been cut from this story, but I guess I'll have to wait for that famous Blu-ray. Also out in the world, we find Spencer and Gabriel driving around for supplies. Spencer starts talking about how he really hates Rick, and he's wondering if that's a sin. And Gabriel says, it's only your actions that matter. Thoughts are just thoughts. But it does make you a complete shit. Gabriel gets out because he wants nothing to do with Spencer because he's on Rick's side. Gabriel's just gonna walk back to Alexandria? Now, recently Gabriel's kind of been winning back the audience, saving Judith, pretending Maggie was dead, being an all-around, all-of-a-sudden nice guy to Rick. But you put him and Spencer together and I wonder why this episode was an hour and a half. And then Spencer gets out too and looks out and runs into the forest. What did he just see in the woods that made him run off? And if I had $1 for every time Spencer was just running through the woods, I would have something like $5. Spencer's not in every episode, he doesn't have a lot of stories, but in more than one episode, honestly, we have gotten more than 30 seconds of just Spencer running. Negan takes Carl into his master bedroom. He takes his red scarf off and throws it on the bed, and then in the next shot, he still has it in his hand and throws it on the couch. Just to point that out. Let's get started. I want to get to know you a little better, Carl. You're smart. In fact, I'm going to tell you just how smart you are. You see, I'd expect a kid your age to be moping around, but you go on a mission. You find me, and you kill 2 of my men. Quick aside, Carl kills 6 men in the books. I'm not really sure what the difference is, if the story and Carl's punishment are the exact same. Why not let Carl kill a bunch of guys? And you're smart enough to know that I'm not gonna let this slide. Negan's like, I can't. I can't do it. It's like talking to a birthday present. You gotta take that crap off your face. And Carl's like, no. And immediately Negan's outraged. 2 men! 2 men. And that is a clear by the books double line. And Carl does. Slowly, he takes his bandage off. This is another great scene adapted straight out of the comics, and it does a really good job of building tension as to what we're going to see under his bandage. We haven't seen the prosthetic on Carl since he initially got shot in the mid-season premiere during Season 6. In that mid-season premiere, I honestly didn't think the makeup effect looked really great. I remember later seeing some behind-the-scenes photos with straight-on fluorescent light, and it looks great. So before this moment happened, I was like, alright, here we are, they gotta blow me away with this prosthetic. And unfortunately, it just looks okay. And I think back to the prosthetic that Glenn had with his eye popping out in the season premiere, and how strikingly close it looked to the comics. This doesn't look like the comics. In the comics, Carl has a massive scar. And I just felt like this was a little underwhelming. Christ! No wonder you cover that up. Have you seen it? That is gross as hell. I want to touch it. Oh, come on, can I touch it? And Carl starts to cry. And we can see on Negan's face that he's affected by this. It's easy to forget you're just a kid. We're starting to get a sense of Negan's weak spot. I actually don't know all of Negan's backstory. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a kid or always wanted a kid. All jokes aside, you look rad as hell. I wouldn't cover that shit up. It may not be a hit with the ladies, but I swear to you, no one is gonna screw with you looking like that. I think it's important that Negan shows Carl that he accepts the way Carl looks. Back when the gang just met Jesus and Rick was about to head out for the hilltop, Carl says that he doesn't want to go because he doesn't think that a kid with a scar would be the best first impression, and Rick doesn't say anything. He doesn't make him feel better. He's just like, sorry I didn't tell you I'm banging Michonne, I'm gonna go now. Over and over in this episode, Negan is shining in ways that Rick never did for Carl. That's what I'm talking about. Men breaking each other's balls. What do you like to do for fun? You like music? I want you to sing me a song. You mowed down 2 of my men. I want something in return for that. Sing me a song. It sounded like a double line? I can't think of any. Bullshit! What your mom used to sing to you? What your dad play in the car? Terrible country music, actually. Negan stands up and holds Lucille to Carl. Start singing. And Carl starts singing You Are My Sunshine. It's a powerful scene, it's a very tense scene. In the background, Negan is swinging Lucille with all he's got, and they feel like practice swings. Maybe as soon as Carl stops singing, he's just gonna hit him across the face. Carl, not being a little kid, doesn't really take away from this song. I still feel like he's put on the spot and just jumps to the first thing he thinks of. I think Chandler Riggs does a great job. It's kind of tough to read. You're gonna have to sing a song to Negan in the script and then really pull through on it. Your mother sing that to you? Where is she now? Dead, huh? You see it happen? I shot her. Before I could... Damn, no wonder you're a little serial killer in the making. That was an example of breaking balls, by the way. To be honest, this specific moment has been something I've been looking forward to since Season 3 when Carl had to kill his mother. In the book, Carl doesn't have to shoot her. So as soon as that happened in the show and I went back and read this Negan story, I always wondered, when Negan brings up his mom, I wonder what Carl's gonna say. And I wonder what Negan's reaction to that is going to be. And they didn't disappoint. I'm glad that they brought it up. I'm glad that Negan was impressed. I'm glad that he makes a reference to the serial killer joke that he made back in the season finale. And then he tops it off talking about busting each other's balls. Oh, which was a double line. Relating to the kid, become kind of a pal with him. I absolutely love this scene. Negan takes Carl back into the main factory room. He lets Carl hold Lucille, and then he gives a big speech to all the saviors about how the rules matter and that how he doesn't really want to do this. He gets down to where Mark is, tied to a chair. Dwight has prepared the iron, a great addition making Dwight actually participate in the burning of someone else's face, and Daryl is there left to mop up. In the crowd, we get Dr. Carson, Sherry, and a couple of Negan's other wives. This is the moment where I realized that Simon didn't go back to the sanctuary after his visit at the hilltop. I thought he wanted to give Negan the box of booze he got from Gregory in person. I kind of thought that he was going to head back to the sanctuary with the Negan truck, but that doesn't seem to be what happened. Where did Simon go? Maybe there's another outpost that he is in charge of. Back when we first met Simon, he was in charge of the group of people that were at the library. The guy that got hung in the season finale was a part of this library group. But then they all obviously died. And once all of the saviors who were looking after the hilltop got killed by Rick's group, Simon and his saviors took over. So I suppose Simon isn't actually stationed at the sanctuary, but as Negan's right-hand man, I would assume that one of the two sanctuary episodes, episode 3 or episode 7, would feature Simon, but they don't. Maybe Steve Ogg had some scheduling issues, but I'd hope in the next half of this season that we would get at least one scene with Simon and Negan. Mark, it is what it is. Negan grabs the iron. The music is fantastic, the tension is building, and he presses the iron on Mark's face. The show has recently been doing a great job every time anything horrific happens. They cut to all the other people first before showing the gruesomeness. And then when we do see the burn, it looked so great. The skin is peeling. Mark pisses himself, and Negan has Daryl clean it up. This is another tactic Negan is using to dehumanize Daryl and embarrass him in front of Carl. Rick and Daryl were Carl's two pillars of ultimate masculinity up until Negan showed up, and now they've both been made into lapdogs. Back out in the woods with Spencer, he stumbled upon a walker perched up on this metal thing attached to a tree. When Spencer gets him down, he finds a note on him written in Latin. I don't like Spencer or his story enough to put any amount of time into trying to figure out what this letter says. Now, with Rosita and Eugene, they are entering the munitions factory. They have the exact same shot of Rosita and Eugene opening the door from when Eugene and Abraham were here last season. Rosita starts unpacking supplies and Eugene seems all nervous. No. I asked you to make me a bullet. You said yes, so make me a bullet. You're right, I said yes. That was peak heat of the moment, and in the intervening hours I've been taking a deep dive into other options, trying to game out any iteration where charging into this enterprise makes any sense. I'm sorry, I have to do all the Eugene lines, they're just so fun. He, like Rick and a lot of the other people, have looked at the deaths of Lynn and Abraham, meaning that they can't fight back because only more people are going to die. But Rosita's in the other camp, like Michonne and Carl, who won't take no for an answer and would rather die. Pendejo, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Did you guys know that Rosita was Hispanic? I just wanted to make sure. I think I do. It doesn't matter if you're stealthy, snipey, gun, or knifey. This is a television show that's been on for 7 seasons. Stealthy, snipey, gun, or knifey. That's the silliest thing I've ever heard. A single bullet ain't gonna do it. Best case scenario, you take him out. Then make me a bullet. Thank you, Rosita, for that double line. Somebody has to pay the price, even if you're willing. From all we've seen, it's not a lock you'll be the one. Will the man who killed the man who saved our lives die? Maybe. Then make me a bullet. I think in the past I've called that a triple line. I really like what Eugene says here. It totally sets up that even though Rosita might fire the shot, she won't be the one paying the price. But I'll get to that in my episode 8 review. You owe me. And you owe him. Him being Abraham. You don't know anything. You don't do anything. So for once, do something useful. And make me a bullet. Alright everybody, let's give a round of applause to Rosita. She gave us our first quadruple line. Here Rosita is saying that Eugene is the weak one, but I think that's totally wrong. Eugene is doing what Rick is doing, and that is the strong decision, trying to keep everyone alive and not going crazy. Rosita is letting her emotions get the better of her. She wants to avenge Abraham's death. It's not making her stronger, it's making her weaker. And I love this scene for it. I think these two have a very interesting relationship. They both were brought together by Abraham, and now they are left together because of his death. But all of her taunting works, and Eugene does it. He makes her a bullet. Back at the sanctuary, we get another scene of Sherry and Dwight in the stairwell. This seems to be their usual meeting spot. She gives him another cigarette, just like she did in episode 3, and he says, "Don't beat yourself up." He obviously knows that Sherry turned Amber in, telling Negan what Mark and her did. She's like, "When we made that deal with him, it was only supposed to affect us. No, if you're still standing, it's always on somebody else's back." And Sherry leaves. Turning in Mark and Amber might be weighing on her a little bit. She seems to be changing when Dwight seems to be accepting the life they're living. Back in Negan's master bedroom, he is marking in a little book. It seemed to have a list of names of all the people living in the sanctuary. Perhaps he's writing down that, "Oh, I burned someone's face today." Carl asks, "Why haven't you killed me? Or my dad? Or Daryl?" "Daryl is gonna make a good soldier for me. Your dad, he's already getting me great stuff. You, it's more productive to break you. You think that's stupid? You know I can't let you go, so do I kill you? Iron your face? Chop off your arm? Tell me, what do you think?" Carl stands up. "I think you should jump out the window to save me the trouble of killing you. I think you're not saying what you're going to do with me, because you're not going to do anything. If you knew us, you would kill us. But you can't. Wow, after the whole tour, Carl does not seem sold on Negan. Even though he pushed him and impressed him, Carl hates him and won't stop. I mean, Carl made himself watch Glenn and Abraham's death because he wanted to hate Negan. Nothing, not some women or some respect, is going to change that. Let's go for a ride, kid. Just outside the fence of the sanctuary, Negan and a couple cars full of saviors are heading out towards Alexandria. On top of one of those vans, Jesus. I'm not sure how he got on top of that van, if that van is heading out of the sanctuary, and anyway he's rolling off of it to get back into the sanctuary, so maybe Negan is pulling the cars into the sanctuary, but no, he's leaving. So why was Jesus on top of one of the vans that was already in the sanctuary, trying to get into this? Doesn't make sense. It's just a cool way to show us Jesus is in the sanctuary. Negan calls Daryl over. He seemed worried, so I'm taking the kid home. Daryl's like, you do anything to him. Dwight! Daryl needs a timeout. Put him back in his box for a little while. Negan flips Daryl off. We get the briefest glimpse of Daryl looking up to the top of the van where he no doubt sees Jesus. When Negan finally rolls out, Jesus is no longer on the top of the van. Back on Easy Street in Daryl's cell, Daryl hears a sound, and underneath the door, a note slides through. The note says, "Go now." On the back of it, there is a key and a match. Okay, so obviously we know what happens to Daryl in the mid-season finale. And I'm pretty sure that this was written by Jesus. I don't know how Jesus got a key, but last week I kind of thought that it was Sherry. In episode 3, she told him not to go, but that's because Negan was there, and Negan was setting him up anyway. But now that Negan's gone, it would make sense that she would take that opportunity to try to get Daryl out of there. But it was most likely Jesus. Back out in the world on the road, a savior gets stopped by Michonne's big pile of zombies she's been making throughout the episode. Michonne gets her sword to her neck. Take me to Negan. They get back in her car. Michonne is holding a gun to her head. The woman tries something really quick, but Michonne gets her back. Right before that moment, I thought it was really stupid that Michonne was holding the gun out so far, so the redheaded woman's attempt to get the gun was no surprise, and had no tension to it. Michonne points the gun back at her forehead. Take me to Negan. Hey, Michonne got a double line. Back at Alexandria, Negan is knocking Lucille on Olivia's door. She answers surprised to see Carl without a bandage. She asks after Enid, but Carl says she's fine. Negan's all excited. Great. Don't worry, I've counted enough double lines. I won't count those 5. Where's Rick? Olivia stutters and doesn't come up with an answer. He's like, don't care. Where's Rick? Oh, but that one was a double line, so. Out scavenging for you. Cool. I'll wait. They might not be back today. We're running really low on everything. We're practically starving here. Starving? You. By practically, you mean not really. And Olivia just burst into tears. Excuse me. What's your name again? Olivia. You know, I'm surprised that Negan didn't remember her name. He spent so much time with her when they were looking for the guns in episode 4. And on top of that, unlike Gregory, I would assume that Negan makes a point of always remembering a name. But whatever. I'm pretty sure it's just a line from the comics. Right. Olivia. I am sorry for having been so rude to you just now. And it looks like I'm going to be here for a while, awaiting your fearless leader's return. And if you'd like, I think it would be enjoyable to screw your brains out. I mean, if you're agreeable to it. And she slaps him across the face. I heard on Talking Dead that the take they used was the one where she gave full force, and damn, Jeffrey D. Morgan doesn't miss a beat. He just turns all cool like, I am about 50% more into you now. Now, Olivia, would you be a lamb and go make me and Carl some lemonade? And she's like, no, I'm supposed to be with the... Make it. That's a double. He turns to Carl. All right, kid, take me on the grand tour. You know, because Negan just gave him a big tour of the sanctuary. Now Negan wants a tour of Carl's home. We get this funny little montage. Negan standing with his bare feet on carpet, checking out the running water, getting a bullseye at dart. Funny, seeing how the last time we saw Carl play that, he couldn't make a single one. Obviously, Negan is supposed to be impressing Carl very much, though I'm not sure it's working. Carl tries to keep Negan from the baby's room, but he comes on in anyway, and he's just like, oh, look at this little angel. It's so interesting to see this side of Negan. I mean, nobody's gonna hate on a baby, especially in the apocalypse. Back out in the world, Rick and Aaron have found another sign. It says, my name is Leslie William Starden. Not a name I'm familiar with from the comics. He lists all the guns he has. I will not hesitate to protect my home, my food, my supplies, and my ammo. Aaron reads, Congratulations. The only way you have possibly gotten this far without being shot is that I am dead. It's always cool to see how different people survive in the apocalypse. Rick and Aaron get a look at this big boathouse that the guy was living on. I think this lake was the same lake that they used to film that Governor episode way back in season 4 when he was putting dead bodies in the lake. I'm just so-so on this Rick story. I really wanted them to run into Michonne doing something or Morgan and Carol doing something, but unfortunately they're just going after these supplies. And as I will discuss in my episode 8 video review, they don't find anything worth my time. Back outside Alexandria, Rosita and Eugene have showed up. Rosita's got her gun locked and loaded. She takes the bullet out one more time so the audience can get a good look. She says, "I'm sorry for what I said."
I reject that.
"I am sorry." The double "I'm sorry" is a double line.
No, maybe the words, but not the intent. You're sounding sincere, but it's just a flea circus. You got what you wanted. This is just you feeling bad, not saying that you didn't want what you wanted. I'd like to take it back to awkward silence now.
I think Eugene got the better of this interchange. I like that he's given her a little taste of her own medicine, that she feels bad for him, especially when she's heading into what she thinks is her last day on Earth. She's planning to kill Negan and die doing it. So if things aren't good with Eugene, how could she truly be ready to die? At the front gate, they run into Spencer, coming back with a bunch of supplies. Apparently, the strange zombie archer dude in the tree who spoke Latin had a bunch of supplies buried. Good for Spencer. Gabriel obviously doesn't come back with them, so I wonder why Rosita and Eugene don't ask, "Hey, what happened to Gabriel?" They all head for the gate to find out that Negan is already there. Back on Rick's front porch, Negan is holding Judith. He's singing to her. He's like, "Oh, this little girl is precious." We get our first look at Negan with just a white shirt on, and we see the bandage on his wrist. This is something that was in the comics that was never actually explained. Why does Negan have this bandage? Did he try to slit his wrist? Did one of his wives try to do it in his sleep? I don't know. I would hope to get some kind of explanation on this from the show, but it never happened in the comics. Maybe they're saving it for way down the line. I don't know. "Oh, I like it here. I might just have to stay here." I was thinking about what you said earlier, Carl. Maybe it is stupid keeping you and your dad alive. He's got Judith on his knee and he's talking to her. I mean, why am I trying so hard? Maybe I should just bury you both down in one of those flower beds, and then I could just settle into the suburbs. What do you think about that? Anytime Rick is home and safe in Alexandria, he's usually just wearing his white shirt. I like that Negan is trying to literally take the place of Rick, so that when Rick comes home, he's got his baby, his outfit, and his kid. I think this was another amazing episode. They covered a lot. Obviously, there's not a ton to theorize about, because we all know the answers to the questions, because episode 8 is aired. But I hope we had a good time covering it. That's all for me. Next time I will be doing my review and analysis of episode 8, where we will be doing a lot of predicting for the future of the show. So everybody get pumped, get excited, and I'll see you in a few. Tell me what you thought of the episode down in the comments section. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and watch it again. This has been The Dude. See ya.